If you think talking about mental illness is scary, imagine what happens when we don't talk about it. Join the conversation. Visit letstalkstigma.org.
Hello, I'm Frank Cammarata, Executive Director of the Erie County Office for People with Disabilities and board member of the Erie County Anti-Stigma Coalition. On behalf of the coalition, we welcome all the viewers and listeners today as we provide an opportunity to meet with experts in the field and discuss timely concerns. Today, we are focusing on the state of stigma, mental wellness for students and parents, as we close in on our first month of the new school year. Back to school is a time of year that can be a fresh start for many, but can also lead to stress and anxiety for students, parents, teachers, and administrators. We want to explore what some of the stressors are and what are some tips and techniques to overcome them, and let you know that help is available. According to the National Alliance on Mental Illness, or NAMI, 1 in 6 United States youth aged 6 to 17 experience a mental health disorder each year, and half of all mental health conditions begin by age 14. In 2019, 15% of adolescents aged 12 to 17 reported receiving mental health services in school. The Center for Disease Control, or CDC, states schools help to promote the mental health and well-being of students through education, prevention, and early intervention efforts. Focusing on establishing healthy behaviors during childhood is more effective than trying to change unhealthy behaviors during adulthood. Today, we will be discussing the mental well-being connection for students, parents, teachers, and administrators, as well as providing reminders of where people can go for assistance in safe and confidential environments with our terrific panelists. Before I introduce our panelists, just a couple housekeeping notes. Our program is 1 hour. During this time, if you have a question or comment, please type it into the comment box and we will respond accordingly. Your questions and input often lead to very informative dialogue, so please don't be shy. There is no such thing as a silly question, as we are all here to learn today. Now it gives me great pleasure to introduce our panelists. Carlos Alvarez is principal of Emerson High School in Buffalo, New York. Carlos is an accomplished educational leader with over 20 years of experience in Buffalo Public Schools, where he is entering his 13th year as a principal. Carlos is renowned for his strategic leadership and commitment to improving student outcomes. A graduate of Harvard Educational Leadership Program for Turnaround Schools, Carlos has made significant impact as a turnaround principal, where he led his previous school to doubling the graduation rate in just 4 years. In addition to his role as principal, Carlos is an active member of Section 6 Executive Committee, where he contributes to the broader educational landscape in Western New York. His extensive experience and dedication to educational excellence continue to inspire both his colleagues and his students. Welcome, Carlos.
Thank you.
Ian Nowak, MS LMHC, is the director of the Family Support Center for Sweet Home Central School District. She is also the chair for the Western New York Family Support Center Coalition and board president for the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention, the Western New York chapter. She has previously worked as a mental health therapist with children and adolescents in outpatient and residential settings. She serves as an adjunct professor in the school counseling department at Niagara University. Welcome, Ann.
Thank you.
Melissa Walter is Director of Child and Adolescent Services at Horizon Health Services. Melissa oversees the school-based program with 25 local schools. Melissa specializes in providing trauma-informed treatment for PTSD and other anxiety disorders, as well as providing DBT to adolescents presenting with suicidal thoughts and self-injury. Welcome, Melissa. And finally, Emma Telesco is a 4th grade general education teacher. Emma has a bachelor's degree from St. Bonaventure University in general and special education. Emma is a general education teacher in an integrated co-taught room. Emma co-teaches with a special education teacher, and together they integrate students who are on the spectrum or who have learning disabilities with students who do not. Emma states, teaching is what brings me the most joy, and I simply would not trade it for anything. Welcome, Emma.
Thank you.
Welcome to all of our panelists, and thank you so much for joining us today. Welcome to the beginning of the school year, although it is a month old. So let's begin our questions. First question. As we begin our conversation today, we have a unique panel representing teachers, administrators, and counselors. And I would like to begin with Emma and Carlos. Beginning of the year with new routines and new peers can be difficult for many students. Can you identify some of the concerns or stresses that kids have on day one? Let's start with you, Carlos.
Hi. So, one of the stressors being in a high school, students that are just entering high school from elementary or middle school, just the change of scenery, the change of expectations in themselves are stressors. The change of your typical daily habits from the summertime, the stressors of performing well academically. These are things that we oftentimes see at the high school level.
Okay. And how about you, Emma?
Yeah. For the position that I'm in, my kids are coming over from third grade, which is in a separate building. So in our community, we see a separation there for all the third graders who are only 8, 9 years old coming over into a whole different building that's connected to our high school. But overall, as an experience, they're little kids from my point of view. I know Carlos is able to emphasize the high school point of view of things. But these kids, they have an innocence to them and they're nervous, right? They're used to being at home with their parents and they're not as independent as you would expect them to be because they are 8, 9, 10 years old. So definitely being able to just show the kids that we're here for them. We can be another father, mother figure for them if we have to be, and knowing that this is a safe place and that they can feel comfortable no matter what's going to happen and that we're here to protect them. I always emphasize that a ton during the beginning of the week, always emphasize safety, just because it's important and there's a lot of unknowns at that age coming in. You don't know what the world is like. You don't know what's going to happen every day, right? So a lot of it is unexpected, and just being able to give them that daily agenda and know that we're here for them and, we're a safe place.
That sounds like a great way that you're putting your students at ease. Carlos, do you have any strategies of putting your students at ease?
Well, the one thing we always tell the kids is it's okay to share your feelings. And with that being said, we have a plethora of opportunities for support between our student support team as well as our partnerships outside within the community. We tell the kids it's important to check on your friends, right? Don't be quiet about things. We're all here to help. And, everybody may need something different, but we're all here to support. We're all here to support you.
And Carlos, just an aside, do you ever give any free cookies to any of your students from your restaurant?
Oh, not just cookies, but full meals, soup, sandwiches, everything.
That's great. That's wonderful. So, again, for Carlos and Emma, are there different times of the school year that are more difficult for students' mental wellness? We're talking about the beginning of the school, but there could be exam time. It could be, but I'll let you speak to the topic. Emma, do you?
Yeah, absolutely. So for us, we see a lot of the holidays being the tougher times. The kids might not have, there might be some trauma that happens no matter what the district it is, right? If something happens, holidays are going to be one of the things that are not going to be the same as it was necessarily last year. So whenever there's anniversaries or things like that, you usually see students struggling more and you start to see behaviors. And then just basic, like beginning, end of the school year, emotions are high. In the beginning, they don't know what's going to happen. They're coming from a whole new teacher, a whole new class. So the routines are all going to be different. They have to figure out what works for them, but they have to figure out how they can express that and talk about it. And they might not have felt comfortable and might have been, acting out in the last year's class. And then they come into a whole new situation and be totally fine. So definitely beginning of the year, and then end of the year. Summer is exciting. So definitely, I don't know how it is in high school, but definitely at the younger age, it's very exciting time. So we see focus becoming more of a problem around those times. And when focus is more of a problem at those times, that's when kids who do struggle with mental illness and other anxieties, they start to let their mind wander. So we try to integrate more fun activities and some, holiday parties or whatever it is to kind of help the kids through those times.
Yeah, I concur.
Carlos, yeah.
Sorry. I concur with what Emma mentioned regarding the holidays. Very similar at the high school level. We also see we have more concerns around exam times. So right around January and June, high school is high stakes, graduating is high stakes, exams are high stakes. And, unfortunately, sometimes when the students don't perform to their expectations, they get upset and they get bothered and they get down on themselves. End of the year, once again, is always challenging. Unfortunately, students that are doing poor, it starts to hit them. Oh my goodness, I'm not going to make it. I'm not going to pass this exam. And all those emotions start to come out. And, that's when our student support team is extra vigilant to ensure that we can, help manage all these concerns.
So are there any specific strategies or coping mechanisms that you have in place to help the students, Carlos?
Yeah, so we've done a great job having our staff and our students trained in mental health first aid training. So they are able to help each other, right? It's not just about the adult helping the child. We've trained the kids to be able to help each other. So a lot of potential concerns or issues are addressed before they become something more serious. So I'm really proud of the way that the kids, take what they've learned in those trainings and help to, intervene with their friends.
It's nice to hear a proactive approach as opposed to the, let's react when all of a sudden something bad happens to us, right? How about you, Emma?
Yeah, kind of. We can't, at the lower elementary level, we can't have kids necessarily going through long, drawn out trainings because, the focus is just not there. They're going to struggle with that. But it's really interesting, Carlos, to hear that the students are trained. That's pretty cool. Side note, strategies to help cope. So this is kind of where we step in as teachers. We try to start to teach the strategies because the kids don't know how to handle their emotions at this age. Again, being a fourth grade teacher, the kids are 8, 9, 10 years old. So we really do emphasize the importance of expressing emotions. Every day we have a little morning meeting and we start every day with our daily affirmation. So we have a daily affirmation wall in the classroom and the kids have an option to say 1 to 3 affirmations. They have to pick a word that's on the wall. None of the words are negative. And the I am statement is in the middle. The I am statement is important because rather than saying I feel, they're not able to look at if they're tired, right? They can't say, I feel tired. We want them to say, I am, and then emphasize, you might not be feeling something on that wall right now, but it's okay to put it out there so we can try to work and strive towards that feeling. So a lot of the kids are just so used to saying that I feel, so we really do emphasize that I am confident, I am happy, I am friendly. So they're constantly reminding themselves and then thinking about ways that they can do that. Other strategies that we do, I talk to my kids in this exact same tone. I don't have a teacher voice. This is just a personal preference, but I feel like being able to talk to them as real humans is key at this age. Talking to them like they're real people, and even though they're 8-9 years old, and even though we're their teachers, we're human too. And we tell them that all the time, my co-teacher and I. It's okay to express emotions. It's okay to cry. It's okay to feel angry, but let's talk about it first. I've had students in the past. I said, hey, I might not know exactly what you're going through because I'm not you, but I am here for you. And constantly emphasizing that, especially in the district that I'm coming from, we see a lot of kids in poorer situations. So we want to be able to show them that for the couple hours that they're here in this building, in this classroom, we're here for them. It's okay to talk about what's going on. It's okay to express it whenever you feel like you need to express it. Don't hold it in. And we really use things restoratively. We use a lot of restorative practice. So here at Salamanca, all of our staff is working towards getting trained in restorative practices. So we do these circles rather than consequence. We want to be able to talk about what led to it, why it happened, what's going to happen afterwards. And rather than being in trouble, we're going to have a conversation about what we can do to prevent that. Because again, they're still learning. They don't really know what's necessarily right or wrong to an extent. So.
Okay, great. Well, so going to switch gears a little bit. Carlos touched upon or mentioned counseling, and a number of schools, I believe all schools now have counseling services, and so we're very fortunate to have both Ann and Melissa here to talk about it. But what are the common concerns of the incoming students that you're working with? Ann?
So what we're seeing is anxiety. We're seeing the difficulty being able to regulate their emotions and express emotions appropriately, resolving conflict, being able to kind of problem solve independently, and also just being able to interact with others. And that kind of is connected to the conflict resolution. Just if you have an issue with someone, not really knowing how to do that in a positive way and kind of solve those common issues that happen between kids, but do it in a way that it's healthy.
Okay. And Melissa?
Yes, also that large uptick in anxiety. I think it's 1 in 3 adolescents between the ages of 13 and 18 will experience an anxiety disorder. And so, we're certainly seeing that. We're also seeing large numbers of children and adolescents experiencing depression. And so, that manifests in a lot of different ways. It's very common for children to experience panic attacks. It's very common right now for children to experience a lot of avoidance of school. So we're seeing a lot of kids avoiding going to school and working on ways to get them to the school. So that's become very common as well. We try to support the students and the parents on, strategies and responses that the parents can have to their child to best support getting them to the school and avoiding, if that makes sense, because the more they avoid, the worse the anxiety gets. So, it's really a joint effort between us and parents and the schools, kind of all working together and working as a team on managing some of these problems.
Interesting. Okay. Well, ironically, we just received a question from the audience. It says, and it really could be, and it's about parenting. Melissa, can you address the stigma that parents might have related to depression or anxiety sending their child to school for the first time or finishing high school?
Yeah, just like children, I think parents are also afraid of what their children are going to be exposed to, afraid that their children are going to feel anxious throughout the day and not know what to do, or feel fearful while they're at school and not have the support of their parents. And I think working with the counselors at the school, whether it be, the school counseling team, the family support center, if, we have a counselor placed at a school, working with the counseling team to come up with a plan for that student throughout the school day. When we're able to identify what the fears are, we can work on a plan to kind of help mediate those fears.
Ann, do you have anything you'd like to add?
No, I really agree with Melissa. I think a lot of it is communication. I think if parents are nervous, I think getting to know the school, if your child is starting school for the first time, set up a meeting, get to know what services and supports are available. How will certain situations be handled? Who are the people that your child will be interacting with every day, and who can they go to, so that parents can do some prompts with their kids before the school year starts, to be able to say, hey, these are the people to go to if you're feeling nervous, if you're feeling unsure, or if you run into a situation you're not sure how to handle, here's the people to go to.
So, who's identifying the specific needs of the students? Are the parents reaching out to the teachers, or are the teachers primarily reaching out to the support centers, to the therapy, to the counseling?
Actually, it's a combination. So I think if there's a situation that's happening at home, whether it's a child that is struggling to get out of bed in the morning, then the parent is reaching out to the school and letting them know that there's a struggle. Or if something happened the night before at home, parents might be reaching out to talk to the school counselor or the administrator to let them know that something's going on and can someone check on their child. And then a conversation will ensue from there about what type of supports might be available. But we also are having, counselors that maybe are meeting with kids and recognizing some things, teachers that maybe are seeing kids struggling and go down or talk to their peers and see that they're having the same issues with certain students. Administrators, if kids are getting into discipline issues, and as they talk with the student, they find out, that there's something behind whatever the behavior was. And then kids self-refer. So there's lots of different ways that kids come to our attention and ways that we get them hooked up with services.
Is that common though, that kids self-refer?
I would say yes. It's getting it. This generation has become a lot more comfortable with talking about mental health, going to counseling, sharing that they're in counseling, talking about their feelings. Certainly, we're not at anywhere near where we wanted to be, but I do believe that there is definitely a more of a comfort level of kids asking for help and talking about it.
Interesting. Melissa, you find the same thing?
I find the same thing even in the clinics. We're finding that the children are asking their parents to call and arrange counseling services. They see a need. They are hearing about their friends who are in counseling, or other people who are in counseling that are benefiting, and they want that as well. I think there's a lot of information out there on the internet and around them, even in school, about mental health. And I think they're more aware even than we were at that age of mental health support and what they can access. And so, sometimes it's them asking their parents.
And I guess along with the parent thought here, do you find that parents are open to discussing mental health topics with their children, or do they tend to find it intrusive? And that question could be for any one of us, any one of you here.
I think it varies. I think, some parents are very open to it. They are seeking information. They want to know how to best support their children. And then there are some parents, I think, who are fearful of, what it will mean if their children are accessing these services. Does that mean their child is going to make a suicide attempt? Does that mean, that the problem will get worse? And so we really try to work with parents in their fears. We actually have a lot of family peer support at Horizon. So we have professional peers who have lived experience raising children with mental health needs on staff. And so they can sometimes work with parents as well to help make them feel more comfortable and work on that peer-to-peer level.
All right. Anybody else have anything they want to add? No? Okay. I'm going to kind of go back to where we were before. Emma, as a new teacher, what are some of your stressors with the new year? And what are your coping strategies?
Yeah, so I'm only a second-year teacher, so it's definitely a big learning curve as you're getting thrown in. Last year I was in a general education classroom. This year I'm in a inclusive integrated co-taught room. So there's a whole new factor to it. So it is kind of like I'm a first-year teacher again, because I'm doing it in a different setting with different kids. And so it's kind of like a fresh start every year. But I would say some of the stressors that come along with the new year is very similar to the students, right? They come in, they don't know their peers, they don't know their teachers. It's a new setting, it's a new classroom. That's the same thing for us, right? So we're working with maybe new team members. We might have new administration. All of our students are new. So it's not like we're burnt out to the point of we're working with the same kids every single day, for the rest of our career, right? We're getting a new fresh reset every September. So that is kind of refreshing to that extent of things. Personally, for me, one of the basic things is talking to coworkers. They're in it with you. My co-teacher and I are with each other 24/7. We're friends outside of school. I think that really is a big thing to emphasize is you don't only have to be a coworker with someone. Making that relationship outside of school too can go a long way because you can talk about life to an extent. I go to therapy and I'm like happy and willing to talk about it for days. I think everyone should try therapy, whether you're going through it or not. Just talking to someone who is not biased about anything, that is like, it's not just a friend, it's someone who doesn't know this person. So I think I like to tell my kids that it's okay, again, to talk about emotions, and we're going to have bad days and they're going to have bad days. And we want to be as open and honest with them about it too, which is what I'm trying to do in my own life as well. So I wouldn't be teaching something that I'm not trying to practice as well. So I think that's the huge component of things is really practicing what you preach. And I know it might sound a little cheesy, but you want to be able to, if you're teaching these kids how to truly express emotions, and especially with the lives that they're going through and seeing things that we'll never experience, you want to have them be as open as possible. So for me, I'm just trying to do the same and talk with my coworkers about anything that I need, or just reaching out to people is huge. And I'll always emphasize talking about it.
That's very mature for a second-year teacher.
Thanks. I like to teach them I always talk about a balloon. Not always. I don't always talk about balloons, but every once in a while when I see the kids are starting to struggle with emotions or bundling it up, usually maybe around those holiday times or exam times or whatever it is, we talk about balloons. You only can blow so much air into a balloon before it pops. Last year I did it with my kids. I blew it up until I couldn't anymore. It popped. And I told them it's like emotions. You're bundling those emotions. You're blowing as much air into it as possible. You're holding those emotions in, and then all of a sudden it pops. When it pops, the balloon's not struggling to hold in all that air anymore. You're letting it out and you're letting it go, and you feel new and you can start fresh. So I try to do the model for them, and I say that helps for myself. I'm not going to hold back with how I feel, and then they start to feel comfortable in their own selves and their bodies with expressing those things.
Well, thank you, Emma. If anyone is just joining us, I'm Frank Cammarata from the Erie County Anti-Stigma Coalition, and I'm joined by Carlos Alvarez, principal of Emerson High School, Ann Nowak, Director of Family Support Center for Sweet Home Central School District, Melissa Walter, Director of Child and Adolescent Services at Horizon Health Services, and Emma Telesco, a fourth grade teacher. Today we are discussing the state of stigma and mental wellness for students and parents. Everyone joining us, please do take a minute and check out our website, letstalkstigma.org, and maybe join nearly 4,000 others in taking the pledge to end stigma. Also, if you are connected with a business, organization, or faith community, you can become an organizational member of the Anti-Stigma Coalition. You could find information for this on the website under the Members tab. And now, back to our panelists. Carlos, I know you thought you were off the hook, but I'm going to bring this back to the administration and the administrator. What are some of the stressors for the administrators as we begin a new school year?
So my greatest stressor is, especially in the beginning of the school year, is safety, right? So ultimately, as the building leader, I'm responsible for the safety, both the physical, at the physical capacity, as well as the mental health safety of the entire school community. And with that comes a lot of stress, right? Unfortunately, there are things that happen that potentially can jeopardize the physical safety of students and teachers. And it's our responsibility to ensure that we put proactive measures in place for both the physical as well as the mental health, safety elements. So, you asked me what keeps me up at night. That's what does, regardless of how many years I do this. You think things would get easier. They don't. Times are more challenging. However, we have to be very strategic with our resources, right? So whether that's getting more community support, we can go that route. Reallocating internal supports, we could take that route as well. One of the things that I find important for myself personally is, balancing my home and life, right? That for me has helped relieve some of the stress that I have each and every day. I have to remember that I can only do so much. And it's very important to build leaders within my school community so that we can all work together to ensure that we are all supporting each other, both from the physical safety end as well as the mental health end.
Are there any specific ways that you work on your wellness?
I watch the Buffalo Bills.
I'm not sure if that's a good way.
No, I mean, like I said, the home life balance, just being able to kind of, when I get in my car to drive home, it's about thinking about home, knowing that work is here tomorrow. That was tough the first several years as an administrator, but you really have to force yourself to have that balance. Otherwise, you're putting yourself in jeopardy. And my family deserves me when I'm home. So that's what's critical.
Are there any specific programs in schools or school districts that you may know of to assist teachers in that wellness journey?
So we do have wellness committees here at our school, in which we have about 6 or 7 faculty members that design wellness days in which we kind of shut the school down per se. And we do non-academic activities, whether it's yoga, whether it's different, breathing techniques, whether it's, playing, cornhole or whatever it may be, just to kind of, refresh, have a refreshing day where those typical stressors of being a teacher or being a member of the staff just kind of go to the side for the day, and we're able to reboot. So we do have a wellness committee that meets 2 times a month and coordinates with the remainder of the staff on what they would like to do and when they would like to do it. And then, of course, we translate that to the kids as well.
Okay. And I believe you had talked about mental health first aid at the beginning. How aware are faculty and staff about mental illnesses, other than the mental health first aid that has been taught in the schools?
So the staff is becoming more and more aware of what mental health is, what mental illness may be. But with that, they're also becoming more aware of how they can support, where they can support, who they can turn to. We have a compendium that lists all the supporting partners that we have. So no one is left alone, right? People know that they can turn to others for support. So, it's a work in progress, just like anything else, but I think we're headed in the right direction.
Nice. Good. And Carlos, I know I hate to I'm sorry to keep coming back to you, but I just got another question. I know that sometimes you deal with some difficult situations involving drills, but the question is, how do you recommend parents help calm anxiety related to drills at school? Explaining that the importance of paying attention without pushing my own anxieties about safety concerns has been difficult, especially for a kindergartner.
I kind of lost the question. Say that again.
So yeah, how do you recommend parents help keep calm anxiety during drills? When you have a drill, or when it could be a real situation, and you see the folks on TV and they're outside and they're obviously very concerned and upset. What is it that
So one of the things we do is we send prior notice, both written as well as through our school messenger system, so the parents are well aware of when we're having the drills. They're also made aware of what the drills look like and how long approximately they will take, who will be participating in the drill as well. So we do the best we can to, prepare the families to what this is going to look like. And we also have many lessons with the students so that they're aware of what it looks like as well, so that they're able to potentially help their parents, bring down their level of anxiety when it comes to the drills. I think it's important to communicate the importance, of the drills and why we're doing the drills. And the parents are always, we communicate with our parents so often that they know that if they need help or if they have extra questions, they can always reach out to us. We have parent liaisons that are always available, as well as all the adults in the building. So I think most parents know they can turn to us when they have a legitimate concern about, these drills and everything that comes along with the drills. I think at the high school level, it's a little bit easier than maybe at the elementary level. I think the kids know why we're doing the drills and what they're ultimately responsible for. So that helps us a little bit more. But ultimately, it's about the communication with the parents and families.
Okay, all right. And Emma, before we did this, you and I spoke about the parent and teacher relationship, parent-teacher-student relationship, and talking about the needs of the students. How often are parents involved with these discussions when we're talking about the needs of the students?
Yeah, kind of just piggybacking off of what Carlos was saying, we have certain systems that we communicate with parents about, these drills. It might seem scary that we're doing so many of them, but the more the better. It's going to prepare the kids, and honestly, just having these open conversations with them, emphasizing the safety. Even in 4th grade, we open up the floor to have them ask questions, and we say we'll answer whatever question you have about safety. We'd rather you ask than hold back, because if they don't ask and something happens and they don't know, well, then we're going to have some overstimulation and some panic. So we want to be as open and honest with them as we can, just like we are with the parents. Going with other communications about things, we try to call parents, email parents. We have different platforms that we can text them through, just about updates. It doesn't have to always be the negatives. We like to talk about the positive things too. And it might be, why is the school constantly calling me? Well, we want to give you a positive report too. And we believe that having positive relationships with parents is going to help the students. If they see that your teacher and your parents or grandparents or aunts, uncles, whoever is with the student has a good relationship, then the students are going to feel comfortable. And that's just coming from 2 years of work. That's coming from talking to my mentors, my peers. Better relationships at home will help your students significantly. So I encourage parents to always ask questions if you have questions. We always want to talk to you. Don't think we're scary, I promise. But we do, and we encourage you to reach out and never hold back on what you have to say, because we'd rather, again, have restorative conversations about these things rather than being an enemy. We are on your side, and we're not here to attack your kids. We're here to support them.
Great. Melissa, continuing on the parent piece, they have or they can have a lot of stress and anxiety with the new school year. Can you discuss maybe some things that parents are going through and some ways to help ease their anxiety and worries?
Yeah, I think going back to the lockdown drills that parents have to go through, I think sometimes it's scarier for the parents than it is for the children, because as a parent myself, I'm constantly concerned when I hear about these drills that something like that could happen to my child, right? I think parents are worried for their kids' safety. I think also just worrying about their children with these rising numbers of anxiety and depression and seeing what's happening, I think can be really, really scary to parents as well. And parents don't always know how to best support their children. I think, from our perspective as treatment providers, we really try to provide a lot of education to parents about things to look for, how they can best support their kids. If we're teaching their children skills to manage their anxiety or depression, we want to be teaching the parents those skills as well, so they can practice them themselves and so that they can help their children practice them. Sometimes the treatment is for the whole family. Even at the teenage level, we might be involving parents in sessions and teaching them the same things we're teaching their kids so they can have access to those same things.
Okay. All right. And we haven't touched on the Family Support Center. Can you tell the audience what exactly is a Family Support Center?
Sure. So we are a school community collaboration between multiple community service providers and the school district. And we also collaborate with parents and students. And basically our goal at Sweet Home is to be a one-stop shopping for families' needs. So we step in when the needs of the kids and the families go above and beyond what is appropriate for the student services teams in the buildings to handle, or when their interventions have proven unsuccessful. So then they will talk with parents about getting other additional supports involved to help their child. So we focus mainly on mental health, but we also do support for any needs a family may have, because we do acknowledge that if a family is struggling, a child is struggling. And if there's things going on in the home, it's going to be difficult for kids to be successful academically. So we try and address all of those needs that are going to be affecting a child's ability to be successful in school.
Do all districts provide this service?
Unfortunately, no. It has definitely grown. Our program at Sweet Home has been around since 1993. We were the first in the state, and I'm happy to say that there are approximately 25 forms of school community collaborations in Erie and Niagara County. So it's definitely something that people are recognizing is a benefit to having in a school environment.
Well, and I was going to ask you, what are some of the positives that you're seeing regarding the services?
So what I see is that we help parents navigate community services, and we help them, because that can be pretty overwhelming. When you're in crisis, to have to even ask for help is a lot. And if we can make that process of accessing services as easy as possible and eliminate as many barriers as possible for families, then we're ensuring a better follow through and a better outcome. So, we try and help find the most appropriate services in the most timely way possible. Our relationships with our community service providers assist us with that. So we have several school-based satellite clinics with agencies in the community. Horizons is one. We also have Best Self and Gateway Longview in our school district. And we have a couple private practitioners who come in and do services. So that in and of itself helps a family who might have transportation issues, or if they took their child into the community, they would have to be on a waiting list. So that just kind of helps the parents to find the most appropriate services that have convenient times, that accept their insurance. And, if there's other issues that are going on, we can also address those needs as well.
Oh, thank you. Okay. Carlos, I know you have to leave in just a couple minutes. Thank you so much for the time that you've given us here today. It's been very valuable. I hope you feel the same way. How do world events affect the students And I mean, we have so much going on right now. And how can you help to work with students to calm them during these stressful times?
Yeah, I think it's important to remind students that they have a voice, and as long as they're able to, speak appropriately, that it's fine to share their thoughts. Right? We have to teach our kids how to advocate for themselves, and part of that is being able to articulate what it is that they're thinking. So there's a lot going on out in the world. But in terms of have I heard of students talking about things from the political landscape, or even the violence that's happening overseas, I haven't heard anything specific from teachers or kids regarding those types of things. But as I mentioned before, it's always important to let our kids know that they have a voice. It's our responsibility to teach them how to express their thoughts, but not to be afraid to share their thoughts.
Okay. All right. Good. And I'll tell you what, I'm going to go back to Ann and Melissa on this one, because I got another question here. How would you rate the kindness, acceptance, and understanding of students compared to 5 years ago?
Melissa, you can take that.
I think acceptance for sure I think there's more acceptance now than there was 5 years ago, in terms of acceptance of each other, acceptance of what's happening in the community. I think kids have a lot of access to information, access to social media, access to, positive and negative sources. And I think they come to accept the things that are happening very, very quickly, but don't always have the right tools to manage everything that they're learning and experiencing, if that makes sense.
Okay. Yeah. How about you, Ann? What are your thoughts?
I think definitely the exposure to people's differences, diversity, different ways of just being, dressing, identifying, I think has become much more commonplace. And there is less, I wouldn't say that it's completely not an issue, because I think it's still a daily struggle for people to accept someone who, there are still some people who engage in bullying because people are different. But I think it has gotten a lot better, just in the time that I've been in education. One of the issues that I also think is kindness and patience, and that comes along with that acceptance piece. But again, I think social media also has increased some of that. It's easier to make an unkind comment using social media, in a text message, in a posting, in Snapchat and TikTok. You can do all these things where you don't have to be in person with someone to be unkind or to say something. People get a little bit, get their social media muscles and maybe say some things they wouldn't normally say if they were one-on-one with someone. So I do think there's an increase in that. And I think schools spend a lot of time dealing with conflicts that are generated because of social media. But I do feel that there also has been a lot of really great things that have happened over the past few years, when it comes to being more supportive and accepting of each other.
Emma, I'm going to kind of ask you the question. I know you've only been a teacher for a couple of years, and so you only have a couple of years experience, but you were a student recently too. How would you rate the kindness, acceptance, and understanding of students compared to 5 years ago and now?
Yeah, absolutely. There's absolutely a huge difference. Even when I was in high school, going to a counselor was not really like a thing. Like, you had people who they had counselors, but it just was still kind of a stigma, and you were like, ooh, that person's going to counseling. They have to step out. Like, it wasn't really talked about even then. So seeing a difference, I would say definitely going with what Ann is saying. Social media was a thing when I was in school, but not when I was younger. So I think that definitely benefited my group, my generation, a little bit better. But I would say social media doesn't always have the negative effects that a lot of people are thinking. I think it's helping a lot of kids express their emotions. If they're seeing, sometimes I had kids talk to me last year about teacher TikToks. Like they would see them and teachers talking about emotions, and it allows the students to see kind of into the teacher's point of view a little bit. So that relationship is a little bit better. But absolutely, I would say there is a difference. And now kids are willing to talk about emotions, and we're doing what we can by emphasizing that it's okay. Like I feel I was looking back and we had teachers talking to us about emotions, but it just was like the basic, like, how do you feel? Happy face or sad face today, right? But now it's more affirmations, and we do breathing exercises, and we have calming corners just in case kids get overstimulated. The kids know what fidgets are, and they say, like, I need this because it helps with sensory. Like they know what those things are. So I think that's definitely a huge difference that we're seeing as well. So I think it's changing for the better, definitely.
Oh, cool, good. Melissa, you had popped off for just a second. I think it was probably just a technical difficulty. But the question that we're talking about is, where do you see kindness, acceptance, and understanding of students compared to about 5 years ago?
Yes, I talked a little bit about acceptance. I think kindness, acceptance. I'm sorry, what were the others?
Understanding.
Understanding. I think, like Emma was saying, there's a lot more of an understanding of maybe what peers are experiencing, what other people are experiencing in terms of mental health and emotions. So I think that they can be more supportive of each other in that way. I think kids have learned how to express themselves to each other and rely on each other for support as much as they're relying on the schools or the teachers or their counselors. I think they're certainly relying on each other. I think, as Anne was saying earlier, just in terms of the other students' diversity, things that people are experiencing and going through, there's more awareness and just more of an understanding of those things.
Okay.
Yeah, and Frank, if I may jump in real quick.
Yes.
I can say, being in a special education room, being also in a general education room last year and this year, I see certain situations happen, and the kids, I get a lot of questions. How do the kids respond? I don't want my kid to be in this room, like, because I am in an inclusive room, there are kids who are general ed students in this room, and they might see something. They're unfazed. They're absolutely unfazed. That kid's crying in the corner, so what? Like, they're just going to keep doing their work. And I think that answer really shocks a lot of people. But like Melissa was saying, the awareness is huge, and the kids just kind of get it, and they don't really question it. Sometimes, they might, but you'll just, hey, they're having a hard moment. They're like, okay, and continue on. And I think you're seeing that way more than when I was in school.
Interesting. So I have maybe just a couple more questions because we'll be wrapping up here soon. But I hate to go back to this, but just to touch upon the pandemic. We're a few years out of the pandemic, and how has the pandemic, now that we're out of it, how has it affected students? When we were in the pandemic, everyone was learning from home, and there was great difficulty, especially in the special ed world, Emma. And but there were students who may not have had laptops, who didn't know how to use a laptop. Now we're all back in school. How have the effects lessened? Are we out of this in the educational world?
I would say no. I would say no. I think one of the things that we are seeing is we're seeing the academic lag. We're playing catch up with kids who there was lots of concessions that were made as far as loosening some standards. Regents exams were waived for a couple years and cycles, and the expectations were were lessened and lowered as far as what kids needed to pass and things like that. And once all of that went away, especially like at our high school level and stuff, I think you saw a panic, and I think you saw kids struggling and having to be brought back up to speed again. And I think too, when you look at some of our kindergartners, our preschoolers who were born during the pandemic, and so their first, year or two of their developmental life was quarantined and not really out and socializing the way that kids normally would. And we know about child development and how those first 5 years of life are so crucial. I think we're seeing some of those effects as well. And in the social piece of that, I think is still something when people were used to talking in, via Zoom or via meets and things like that. And that basic human interaction became a challenge. And I think that's another thing that we're seeing too, is just that ability to interact with people in an appropriate way. I think a lot of that got stilted.
Yes, and
I was saying, Melissa, go ahead.
from an anxiety standpoint, having to go back to school and go back to those things and back to interacting with people is much more anxiety provoking for them than it might have been had they not been home for that period of time. I don't know that we fully understand the impact yet of the pandemic, but just from a trauma perspective, kids had to experience a threat to their safety and the safety of their families while we were experiencing it as well. And I don't know if we'll fully understand the impact of that on just how they feel going out into the world and the anxiety they might experience as a result of that.
Emma, again, you have an interesting perspective because you were a student during the pandemic, and now you're a teacher. Would you like to add anything?
Yes, I will. I was a student during the pandemic, so that was a whole different experience. But I don't think it's fair to say that the pandemic issues are ever going to really go away. As for an academic standpoint, these kids are behind, and you only can blame the pandemic for so long, but also like they can only catch up so fast. So we're seeing kids who are reading 2 grade levels below, and it's normal. And we celebrate when they're reading a full grade level below. I think absolutely they're going to struggle socially, and that's really hard. We are seeing it. Social boundaries are something we're seeing. There's a lot, they just don't know how to, kids struggle. You can't touch other kids, and they just don't have those boundaries. They don't necessarily have they lost the respect aspect of things, not in a bad way, but just they don't necessarily know how to interact because it's a lot of overstimulation at once. So we get really excited, and then so that's what we do. That's why we teach them what is right and what is wrong. It's a lot of behavior and a lot of emotions that we have to constantly teach. But I think that's the difference, is we're not only teaching curriculum now, it's a lot of emphasis on being updated with the world. If the world's going to be open about mental health and wanting to talk about it, then so should these kids, and we should absolutely teach them. So I think there's always going to be a lack, but I think it's important on how we go about it.
All right. Thank you, Emma. So as we wrap up our discussion today, I'd like to offer each of you an opportunity to provide a few brief closing remarks on our topic. Anne, I'm going to start with you.
I am just very appreciative that you're doing this topic. I think anytime we can have a conversation about mental wellness, and I appreciate that you call it mental wellness, because I think the more we can frame things in a positive light, that talking about, challenges is okay, and talking about strategies, and it's okay to ask for help and provide people with resources, I think is the best way to address any of the issues that we talked about today. So I would just encourage parents that are listening to reach out to your schools, find out who your support people are if you don't know, and reach out for help. And there is help available as long as people know where to go and how to ask for it.
Great. Thank you so much, Anne. And Melissa, I'll go to you next.
Yes, my hope is that parents and families will approach mental health and wellness the way they would approach physical wellness, right? We don't ignore, our dental issues. We don't ignore our physical health, and we certainly shouldn't ignore mental health, right? So I would just encourage families to, take care of mental health as you would any other thing happening with yourself or your children. And you can always reach out and ask questions and access services, and there's plenty of help available.
Great. Emma, you got the last word.
Oh boy, no pressure. I would absolutely agree with Anne and Melissa. I think you both made great points. Number one, I would really like to thank you for this opportunity and going to the source, going to the teachers, going to the people who are in the schools. That means a lot to us, because not only are we trying to help our students, but we want to help ourselves too. And I think the teachers are human. I always thought it was weird that my teacher could live an outside life outside of the classroom, but we're humans too, and we go through things, and it's important to talk about emotions. It's important to talk about feelings, and the more you do it, the better it's going to feel. So I think just reaching out whenever you have a question, teachers are human. There you go. I think just always reach out. We're always here to chat. I know anybody in the school is always willing to chat. Parents, it's okay. If your kid wants help, it doesn't mean that they're going to struggle forever. They just want an extra person in their life as support, and that's okay. So I think, I just appreciate you for doing this work. It's great.
Wonderful. As a reminder to our audience, we need you to take the pledge to end stigma by going to our website, letstalkstigma.org. If your organization would like to join us in our cause, there's information on the website as well. Just click on the Members tab to find out how. Together we can reduce stigma and create an environment of support where help seeking and help giving are the norm. Once again, I'd like to thank our panelists, Carlos Alvarez, Ann Nowak, Melissa Walter, and Emma Telesco. I'd also like to thank everyone behind the scenes, Mike Telesco from Telesco Creative Group for his creative and technical support, Carol Doggett and Karen Karaszewski from KKPR Buffalo for their production support as well. So on behalf of the Erie County Anti-Stigma Coalition, until next time, I'm Frank Cammarata. Join the conversation on mental health, and let's end the stigma around mental health diagnoses. Good luck on your wellness journey.